But that was the first generation. But us, we have the opposite problem. It's not that we're so consumed with grief that we need a healing mechanism to enable us to rejoin society. It's the other way around. We simply have no feeling at all for what it is that we are missing. And therefore the purpose of Avelut over the Churban is exactly the opposite of the purpose of Avelut in private contexts. And that is to gradually, through physical restrictions, build up a sense of deprivation, a sense of what we're missing, a sense of pain. Again, we start with the chitzoniyot, we start with external actions, to be sure. But that's supposed to raise a sense of consciousness about what it is that we've lost. And therefore, Rav Soloveitchik says, instead of going from the chamor to the kal, which is to get out of mourning, the whole purpose of these rituals is to put us into a sense of mourning. And again, it's hard for a person, and Baruch Hashem, especially, there are people who argue, he's argued this for many, many years already, that, what is this thing about Tisha B'Av? We have a state of Israel, we have a unified Jerusalem, etc. What is it? Especially even the Nachem prayer draws its share of controversy. On Tisha B'Av, in the Amidah of Mincha, we have a prayer in which we ask God to comfort the Jewish people, and it describes Yerushalayim as a city that's chareva, that is destroyed, that is shemama, that is desolate, that's bezuya, that is degraded. Now, for many, many years, of course, that was an exact description. But one is a little hard-pressed to apply that physical description, thank God, to the city that we are privileged to have, and to a Jewish state. So there were voices, albeit to the left, even Orthodox voices, but, the left wing of Orthodoxy, as it were, that called for a revision of the Nachem prayer. But in truth, one of the ways you have to approach it is, the words of the prayer stay the same, but what they mean may shift from generation to generation. And that is, perhaps Baruch Hashem we've merited that in many physical ways, Jerusalem is beautiful. It's here. Jews are living here, although we still have pockets where there are difficulties. But when we talk about something being chareva shemama, there are spiritual voids that still exist. Whether it's sinat chinam, whether it's a lack of sensitivity to the love of God, whether it's a lack of passion in our avodah. These are chalalim, these are voids, these are vacancies, these are vacuums. This is a certain sense of emptiness. And that does exist until we have the Beis HaMikdash, but it's hard to feel it. Because after all, the person who was born blind cannot really understand color. The person who was born deaf doesn't really understand the beauty of music. Because they never experienced. We never experienced. We don't even know what it is that we are missing. And in many, many ways, that's the greatest mourning. They tell a famous story after the Six-Day War, when we had the great, great fortune on Yom Yerushalayim to recapture the old city, and particularly the Harabayit, right? The famous, some of the older people would remember the famous announcement, Harabayit B'Yadeinu, even if you weren't there then, but you've heard it, I'm sure, a number of times. The Harabayit is in our hands. And Reb Goren, Zechrono Livracha, showed up and, blew the shofar, and all sorts of very, very great, wonderful things happened that day. And the story is told, it's a famous story, I don't even know if it's true, maybe it's almost become a legendary story, about many of the religious soldiers, the Hester, Bochrim, were at the Kotel, and they were crying, and there was the Rebbe, Rav Tzvi Yehuda Cook, Rav Avram Yitzchak Cook's only son, the Rosh Yeshiva of Merkaz Harav, and they were crying and dancing and singing, different emotions. And then there was a totally secular soldier, a Chiloni, who was also sobbing and crying. And some of his friends asked him, "What are you sobbing and crying? You don't even know what this wall is. What do you care? I mean, good Yerushalayim, but what does it mean?" "I'm crying because I don't know what they're crying about. And therefore there's something missing in me that I don't know. And in many ways, that story of the Chiloni is our story as we look at Tisha B'Av. We can cry not because we know what the Beis HaMikdash is, and not because we know what it is that we are missing, but we can cry because we don't know what it is that we should be crying about. And that is really the greatest galut of all, when a person doesn't even realize what it is that they're missing.